right, welcome to chair yoga today. It's so nice to have you, of course. I would like to get started with just a little opening intention. Today's chair practice can be a little bit of a hybrid, as I was describing before. So if you want to use the chair, feel free. If you want to sit on the floor for our opening stretches, feel free. Anything we do standing, you can use as much or as little support from the chair itself as you'd like. But we're just gonna find ourselves in a nice tall seat. I'm gonna be seated down here on the floor just to start so that I'm closer to you, so I don't have to be quite as loud with my voice. But just take a moment to find a nice tall spine. If you are seated in a chair, think about your chair having 3 separate parts. You can sit all the way back to the back of the chair at this time, using as much support from the chair back as you can to support that spine. Eyes are gonna close, perhaps hands are rested on the lap with the palms facing up towards ceiling. Maybe imagining a string tied to the top of the head, just keeping that spine in a nice long line extending up towards the ceiling. And start to do just a quiet check-in with your breath. Noticing that just the simple act of paying attention, of seeing where your breath is, seeing where it can go, is a wonderful way to inspire deep, full breath. Today's opening intention is entitled, "The point of power is always in the present moment." Today's opening intention or opening power thought comes from Louise Hay's Power Thought Cards. And it describes this idea as, "The past is over and done and has no power over me. I can begin to be free in this moment. Today's thoughts create my future. I am in charge. I now take my own power back. I am safe and I am free." The point of power is always in the present moment. So with our eyes nice and closed, with our spine nice and tall, the breath again begins to circulate through the body. Adding some depth to your inhale, perhaps counting up to the number 4. Pausing at the top of that breath. And then allowing for that exhale to leave the body slowly and controlled. It might feel nice to move the hands that have been resting on the lap to the belly. Initiating some belly breathing, you'll notice that sitting in a chair or on the floor and doing belly breath is a little bit more difficult than laying flat on the earth. But it is still easier than when we try to belly breathe standing up. We do have a little bit of freedom for the belly to expand away from the spine on the inhale and the belly button to fall towards the spine on the exhale. Just take your time here. All right, as you feel ready, slowly start to let your hands fall down off the belly. I'm going to move back towards my chair just so I can be a little bit more visible. But just take your right ear and slowly start to let that right ear fall towards the right shoulder. Staying in this present moment, keeping that as your continual theme today as we move through our practice. Inhaling to bring the head back up over spine. We'll take our time, opposite ear to opposite shoulder. Easy stretching down the side of the neck. Inhale, breath, head back up over spine. Take your time. Let the ear fall towards shoulder. Inhale, breath, head back up over spine, just as we did before, last time around. Make sure you're even on both sides. You've had time to get both ankles. And then head comes back up over spine. I'm gonna bring my hands and place them back again once more on my lap as I turn my nose off to face the right wall. Drawing small circles on that wall. Maybe clockwise makes sense first. And then counterclockwise. I usually suggest to you that you have some music playing in the background. It's a nice calming way to stay here on the mat. But for those of you doing this with me right now, live through Zoom, I hope you can hear the raindrops on your roof and windows like I can hear here at the studio, creating a beautiful soundtrack, helping me stay present in this space. When your body feels ready, we'll turn that head back towards center, let it go all the way off to the other side. So just as you did before, taking time, small rolling circles with the nose. And then easing back around, take it the other way. So playing again, just as you did before, all the intricacies of the neck, letting you have that space to kind of explore the spots that might feel a little tight, a little tense. And then when the body feels ready, that head just takes its time to move back towards center. If you've been seated on the floor, you might need to rearrange your legs here a little bit, maybe switch out what's been in front, what's been in back. We'll let our right ear again go to right shoulder. This time you might add left hand reaching out to the side. Right hand might even come up and rest on the top of your head just to get a little bigger shape. As you feel ready, inhale, head comes back up. Arm relaxes down to the side. Opposite hand may help over, just putting gentle pressure down on the top of the head here. Beautiful. Take your time. Head comes back up over spine, hands resting down towards the sides of you. We'll take a full inhale, whether you're seated on the floor or in a chair. Just start to add length out through the fingers, reaching up. And then exhale, take your time, bring these hands back down. 2 more times just like that, looking for that length. Hands might reach wide or might reach out in front of you. And then we'll slowly lower this back down towards the heart. So just take your time, looking for a little length here. Now the next time your hands reach up to the ceiling, we'll pause there. Keep a little bit of space between the hands. And start to turn just slightly towards the right. Inhale, bring that back to center. Start to turn slightly towards the left. Inhale, back to center. And then exhale, cactus arms. That's our movement for now. So we'll inhale tall. Exhale, twist. Inhale, center. Exhale, twist. Inhale, center. Exhale, cactus. One more time. Back up tall. Twist. Center. Twist. Center. Cactus. Hands come down and rest at your heart, closing the eyes. Connect with that breath again. Slow, easy drink of breath through the nose. Easy release back out. Perfect. As you feel ready, we're going to take our hands to the chair for those of you who are seated with me. and scoot out a little bit. If you've been seated all the way to the back, I've had some blocks under my feet. I'm gonna get rid of those. If you're seated on the floor, you need to rearrange your legs, feel free, or if you wanna join us in a chair. Hands at the fronts of the knees, take your time. Belly moves forward as my hands slide slightly back on my lap. Chest opens, chin lifts. Exhale, breath, not looking for a big curve of the spine, but just a slight subtle lift of those shoulder blades up towards the ceiling. And then take your time moving through that. So this looks like seated cat-cow. Nothing real big happening here, just some movement to open up the spine, get a little bit of fluid in between each of the vertebrae, just keep things healthy, fluid. Following whatever pattern of breath works best to you, but usual guidance is that we inhale when we fill our belly with air, the belly expands, and then we find the exhale as we round the back, round the shoulders. Great work. Finishing out this last round, the next time those hands slide forward towards your knees, we're gonna widen our feet. Those of you who are seated on the floor might turn into opening your legs into more of a seated straddle. And then you're just gonna exhale and start to let your chest fall forward towards your knees. Again, if you're on the floor, keep a nice long spine, feet are separated, long straddle with a long spine. Inhale, start to bring your chest back up. Those of you seated can stay in that straddle. We're gonna keep these wide knees for those of us in the chair. When you feel ready, right arm is gonna start to lift up towards the ceiling and head slightly over the top. Exhale, breath, bring that hand back down. So since we have a little bit wider feet, we are getting a slightly different side body stretch than we might usually get. Taking this one more route. Now the third time we go through this scenario, we're gonna take our legs into that full seated straddle. So those of you who are on the floor, if you need to bring your feet together because seated large straddle has been a lot for you. But those of us in the chair, we're gonna take that same shape. So I've moved myself all the way out to the edge of my chair, really close to the edge. You might have to work on a little bit of balance here as your chair may want to tip a little bit up off the floor. My toes are lifted towards the ceiling. I don't know if you can see that, but my toes are lifted. And I'm gonna take an inhale breath just as I did before. Right hand starts to reach up and over the top. And then I bring this back down. Now, if it feels too big, you can obviously do this with a bent elbow. You can take your time, but I'm trying my best not to tip too far from side to side, really just focusing on that side wall, creating as much space as I can in my side body. Perfect. After you felt even on both sides, those knees will get to rebend, so they've been long and stretched out in front of you. You're gonna take that same seated forward fold. Inhale, reach the chest up tall. Exhale, fold forward between the knees. Inhale, lift that chest back up. Start to walk the soles of the feet in. I'm gonna pivot here. Hopefully you'll be able to see. See my soles of my feet come in together, touching, knees falling out and open to the side. This is a seated bound angle. So those of you who are on the floor, you might look in this same shape. You might have kind of a butterfly shape with those knees. Those of us in the chair have that same shape. Now from here, instead of reaching up and over, we're gonna take this stretch and take left hand, reach it over towards the right side. Bring it back. So now the stretch should be a little lower. You should start to feel it in the thoracic spine near the shoulder blades. And if this is bothersome to the knees or the ankles to sit with your legs like this, you can certainly put them flatter on the floor and just take this as a side body stretch. But when you put these feet together, it gets us a little bit added element for the hips as well as the low back. So just kind of moving through that, again, whether you're seated on the floor or in the chair, a little shape difference here. And this is a lot of dynamic movement. I know we're moving a lot. So if at any point in time something feels really nice and you just want to turn into a static pose and just kind of stay there and continue to reach and then then maybe switch sides and be static on the other side. Feel free. My mid-back tends to get pretty angry sometimes, so this feels nice. Starting to stand those knees back up. Those of you who've been in bound angle, put your knees flat back towards the center, feet positioned on the earth. Beautiful inhale sweeps our hands forward towards our screens, reaching up towards the ceiling. And then exhale as if you were painting down the front of the room. Let your hands go back down. So we'll take about 2 more of those. These are different because we're taking a little bit different shape with the shoulders. Might feel a different sensation in the upper back. And then back down, painting again that same wall. All right, from here, bring your hands so that your elbows bend. Fingertips are gonna come up and touch the tops of your shoulders. Then lift your elbows so that they look like they're coming straight out of those shoulder sockets and open out to the side. Inhaling here, wide elbows. Exhaling, bringing those elbows back towards the middle. So just taking that same dynamic style movement, getting into the upper back, and if something starts to ache or doesn't feel real great, you can always drop these shoulders just slightly. But seeing if you can focus on that nice straight out of the shoulder joint. Last one. Now the next time these elbows open out to the side, we're just gonna take some time to add a little bit of rolling movement. Now it might feel nice to just do one shoulder at a time. And maybe switch to the other shoulder. Of course, remembering that if anything doesn't sit well with you or a doctor's recommendation of how you should be caring for your body, please make sure that you modify or change up the poses to fit what's gonna work for you. Now, if you're feeling a little coordinated today, you might be able to do both elbows at the same time, maybe going the same direction or opposing directions. It's okay to smile and laugh as your body doesn't always cooperate the way our brain tells it to. So just kind of playing around with those shoulders this morning, just keeping them fluid, active. All right, as that feels good, we're gonna open our hands out and face them up towards the ceiling. Perfect. As you inhale, let these hands come up, make clap overhead. Exhale, let them come back out. Now, if your arms are aching a little bit here, good. A little ache is okay. That means we're making some muscle groups work, but pay attention to your spine. Are you sacrificing your spine in order to get this height out of your arms? We don't want a big rounded back. So make sure that spine is staying nice and tall. Give yourself one more lift here. And then just let everything settle. Bring it down to your heart. Shoulders are probably saying thank you a little bit. Maybe a full inhale through the nose and a sighing breath back out. All right, for our friends who've been on the floor, go ahead and join us in a chair. We're going to just get a little bit of big muscle movement for our quads, so the tops of our thighs. This next round of movement involves a timer. So I'll be watching my watch to make sure that we do it for a certain amount of time. But we're gonna place our feet nice and grounded into the earth. I'm gonna turn sideways so that you can actually see my feet. When our inhale breath comes, you have 2 options. Your hands can go to the chair. You can just barely lift your tail up off the seat and then come back and find security in the chair. Second option might be to stand a little higher, maybe using your arms to help you pump. If you reach back, find the chair with your hands, sit back down before you stand back up. Third option might be something bigger. Maybe your hands reach all the way up, and maybe you come back down and don't even sit all the way back into the chair. You're just working on building a little more strength and these big thigh muscles. So if you haven't started moving with me, go ahead. Find out what's gonna work best for you. Maybe you need that little bit of cushion to settle back in and really think about standing strong in your legs when you stand up and taking your time to be graceful when you sit. We wanna make sure the feet are out from underneath of us. We wanna make sure that our knees are going in the same direction as our toes. I'm gonna get you about another 45 seconds or so. So make sure you're breathing here with this. The inhale breath finds you on the way up. And then maybe an exhale breath as you look for your seat on the way down. So just continue to move in that space, finding the pattern that works best for you. Whether you're sitting all the way down or just letting yourself hover. For those of you I can see at home, great alignment, good focus on your knees. Your quads should be waking up. You should be feeling some heat in those legs. That we will work out and stretch out in our standing postures today. We're almost there. And in a little more than a minute today. Great work. Paying attention again to those knees. Make sure that when you squat, you can still see your toes. You've got as much weight in your heels as you can. All right, the next time you stand up strong, stay there. And then hands come down and find your heart. Good work. Let's find a nice strong mountain pose. Hands coming out to the sides of the body, focusing on that tall spine. Remembering that when we take mountain, we're trying to imagine as if we had a string tied to the top of the head, watching our rear, making sure that it's not pushed way out behind us, making a big sway back. Keep that pelvis nice and clean, nice and square to the front. Clean lines, that's what we're looking for here. As you feel ready, inhale breath, hands start to reach up towards the ceiling. Exhale breath, bring this down to your heart. Now once you feel secure and steady in your standing posture, we're gonna move around and do some standing poses. So this is where the chair can become optional. And I'm gonna always keep mine within a hand's reach so that I can show you the option of using a chair. But of course, if you decide, you know what, I'm gonna just do these poses without the chair, you certainly can. When you find yourself standing on your mat, I've been showing a lot of things facing you. From now on, I'll probably be to the side. We're gonna place our hands on the top of the chair and start to step the right foot back towards the back of the mat. Drop that right heel down into the ground. A nice controlled bend in this left leg. If you want to let go of the chair with either one or both hands, feel free to put yourself into just a traditional warrior one. So ideally, as I always state, warrior one, our hips are going square to the front of your mat or towards that chair. And you've only got as much turnout on these back toes as you really need in order to keep that back knee happy. We don't want that foot turned all the way to the side. That creates a different pose and a lot of strain on your hips and knees. All right, changing things up just a little bit. You've got this left knee forward. For those of you with hands in the air, you're going to take your right hand and see if you can bring it over and place it on this left knee. This other arm that's in the air can come either down comfortably to your side, or you might even bring it up, put it on the shoulder, or open up that elbow out to the side like we were doing in our earlier warm-up. If you need the support of a chair, this opposite hand is still resting on the chair. So you took your right hand towards your left knee and you've got just a slight twist. If you need to pop these toes and heel up off the ground, that's always an option if you're able to do that. And might take this into a deeper pose. Those of you with a hand here on the shoulder, if the heel comes up off the earth, you might be able to even open this hand a little bit more behind you. Now, of course, that's a really big pose, so if this hand needs to come to support on the chair, I would never do this big of a twist if my heel was still back here on the ground. So make sure if you're taking that big twist, you've removed that heel from the earth. Good. Perfect. As you feel ready, start to close up whatever variations and shapes you took there. Hands might return to the chair. We're going to take this front foot and step it towards the back of your mat. Those of you who are not using a chair at all, there's no chair nearby, your hands are either on the earth for a traditional downward facing dog, or you might be finding yourself into just like a forward fold. But if you've got a chair nearby, there's a perfect option for you to have right here. Arms fully extended, Back nice and flat, hips reaching towards that wall behind you. And we'll stay in this space for just another couple breaths or two. Letting that spine, again, stay nice and long. Good work. So this shape is always about adding length to our spine, giving it as much space as we can. When the next natural inhale feels ready, those of us in downward facing dog or forward fold or hands on the chair, your inhale will start to bring feet forward towards hands, towards the chair, and stand yourself up nice and strong. When you feel ready, right foot will stay forward this time, left foot will step back. We're looking for that same warrior one shape. So if you watch, these back toes are only turned out just enough so that that back knee is happy. Thinking about turning these hips forward towards the chair, enough bend in that front knee so that we can ideally keep knee and ankle talking to one another in a nice straight line. Hands might lift, one or both. Hips again are nice and square. Paying attention to this back knee, we want to keep it happy. So if it's feeling tweaked or twisted, you might have to rearrange a little bit. That's why having the chair nearby is really helpful while we're trying to figure out what's the great, perfect shape for our warrior one. Now, just as we did before, perhaps this time the right hand might come to the chair as your left hand starts to reach under and look for that leg. You've got just a slight twist there. Other option is that the right hand is either down at the side, or as I showed before, might be resting on that shoulder. So an easy open first. Remembering there's no shame in keeping this hand on the chair. If you need it for balance or just stability, that pose feels too big today. Now, if you do have a hand on the chair and you're ready, you might start to spin up on these back toes so that that heel lifts. We put a little bit more oomph through that back foot. Those of you feeling confident, maybe arm moves from elbow, or shoulder rather, and starts to open, twist behind us. If this other hand wants to join that party, maybe it comes up off the side, looks for a little support on the chair, and you look like this. Of course, remembering if any of this is too big, don't feel forced to do it. Maybe it's just enough just to be here. You've got those heels up off the ground, you've got some support from the chair, just take yourself to whatever challenge level you feel is appropriate. Little bit longer held postures today. We had a lot of dynamic movement in the warm-up. It's always good to hit the center line with some static poses. When you feel ready, hands might rejoin the chair. I'm going to take some pressure, some work from this front foot, start to move it back. If you're holding onto the chair, great. If you want to not use a chair, remember, hands can go down. You can take yourself into somewhat of a forward fold, maybe a ragdoll, or you can be in downward facing dog. Hands can look for the floor, feet can slowly walk back. You put yourself in that upside down V. So depending on how hybrid you're playing today, I know some of you are comfortable without the chair. So feel free to use whatever poses feel good. And I'm modeling all sorts of different shapes for you right now. So if you're unsure, just kind of play. I love the invitation to make poses our own and unique. So take advantage of that invitation today. Decide what works best for you. Giving yourself about 2 more breaths in whatever shape you've chosen to use as transition here from one side to the other. Next natural inhale, as the body feels ready, that's where we're going to start to bring feet towards hands if you're in down dog, or just slowly rolling yourself up if you've been in a forward fold. It might be helpful to have the chair nearby, or you can just be standing nice and strong in that same mountain pose. Remembering that mountain pose builds from the feet or from the ground up. So really be conscious of the way your feet feel on the earth, and then the ankles, Be aware of the muscles of the calves and the thighs. Setting that pelvis so it's nice, flat across the front, avoiding any kind of tilt. Shoulders might lift towards ears, then fall down the spine. Perfect. As you feel ready, we'll start to adjust ourselves from this particular strong mountain to step our left foot back to the back of the mat, and then turn your left toes so that they open up to the side. We're starting to look for warrior two. So whatever knee is bent, that's where our gaze is going. Warrior two always looks in the direction of that front bent knee. Watch your shoulders as I can see a couple of you. We all kind of have tendency to let those shoulders hover up here by our ears. So just take your time, drop those down. See if today we can add a little bit of different movement. So maybe this front hand needs to stay on the chair, maybe it doesn't. If you're ready, maybe the inhale straightens the front knee, reaches the hands up, and then the exhale brings this down. Now, of course, if you're holding on to the chair, you can still do that same movement. Back arm lifts, front knee bends. Back arm lifts, front knee bends. Give yourself about 2 more of those, nice and fluid. And then when you settle into that next warrior two, take this front hand, give yourself the opportunity to reverse warrior. Opposite hand might slide down the back of the leg, reaching towards that back wall. And then just take your time back to warrior two. My front elbow, my front wrist might drop towards this chair as I reach. Top arm up and over the top, looking for length in that side body. Or elbow might drop down here towards your front knee. Holding there, 1 more strong breath, stay in that shape, really reaching through the fingertips towards that wall in front. Excellent work. Bring yourself back up. Find that warrior two. Good work, friends. Front hand looks for the chair if it needs it. Back hand's gonna kind of sweep forward to find the chair. We're gonna take that same movement to try to turn up on these toes on that back foot. Now look how large my lunge is. It's pretty big, so I'm gonna take some little cheater hops just to get this back foot in a little closer. Those of you not using a chair, your hands will just kind of turn around. Maybe you have them at heart. You pop this foot up just a little closer to you, and then we're gonna step straight into a tree pose. So if you need a little help with balance, hands are gonna go to the chair. This back foot takes lift and becomes the knee that's turned out to the side. So remembering with chair pose, our standing leg, strong down into the earth, just like that mountain. Build it from the foot to the ankle, to the calf, to the thigh. Balance the pelvis, keep it nice and flat across the front. Abdominals, shoulders, down, and then maybe you can let go of the chair with 1 or both hands. Finding a space to focus your gaze on, so ideally not your screen. Look at something else not moving within the space you're in. Igniting those arms strong, reaching maybe out to side or up above the head. Good work. Knowing that chair is always there if we need it. Perfect. As you feel ready, this lifted foot's just gonna come back down. Maybe you're facing the side, that's fine. And then just give yourself a little bit of freedom movement. So it might feel good to kind of roll some things around in the ankles, the toes, the hips. Sometimes it even feels nice to kind of jog the legs a little bit. Be present with the power that you have in this particular moment. Now I'm going to switch just because I like to still be able to see you. So I'm going to take my chair to this side of the mat so that now when I step back, because when I was over here, I would have stepped with my right foot. I'm going to do that again. Step with my right foot, turn it out to the side. Now I can still see you. So if you need to do that so that you can still see me on your screen, feel free to move around. However, if you don't like having your back to me, that's fine. Front knee is bent, back leg is straight. And ideally, I feel like I can turn my hips to face straight off to the side. So a lot of times I find that we get really bogged down on what's going on between our heel and our toes on this back foot. So take just a moment to observe the line that you've created. It probably looks like heel in line with maybe this instep or maybe this big toe. It's probably more attainable for most of us is to put it in line with that big toe. And then see if we can start to reach the arms into that same T position. Confidently gazing over this front hand. Maybe the hand needs to come down and rest on the chair just for a little support. Maybe not. And then we start to dance just as we did before, remembering that the inhale breath brought our hands up and the front knee straightened. The exhale breath brought us down as we sunk back into that warrior two. So float here with your breath, remembering that if you need to use the support of the chair, the front hand can stay there. And you can only lift this back arm. So lots of great ways to take this pose wherever you might need it. So this is your dynamic movement. Getting some lifting and lowering, and your legs should feel really powerful. We've got a lot of work so far in our shoulders and a lot of work so far in our legs. Keeping that center of gravity right where you want it. Your core is having to kick on a little bit. All right, friends, last one. Next time you settle back down into that warrior two, turn your gaze forward over that front hand. Flip the front hand. Relax your back shoulder. Let this arm reach up over the top. Gaze might go up to ceiling for increased challenge. Otherwise, just keep your head nice and stable at the center. And then we'll take this up and over the top. Your side angle might look like this or this. Now, full disclosure, I don't remember if we did that twice on the other side or not, but we're gonna do it again. I think we did it twice. This is where it would be helpful to have you in front of me, talking to me, so I could tell you, I forgot. And you could say, yeah, you did it twice, or you did it 3 times. All right, sink into that pose. If you know I did it 3 times, do it again. Perfect. Now our hand, this back one's gonna start to come forward. Pay attention to this back knee. We're gonna start to spin up on those toes. And remember, this lunge that we end up in, whether you have your hands here at your heart because you're not using a chair, or you have your hands on the chair, you might need a little cheater hop or two just to kind of get this a little more structured. Weight starts to shift forward towards this front foot, stepping in to that tree right away. Now you can stay facing off this side, or if you want to turn a little bit, open that knee out to the side so you can see a little better, feel free. You might look for height out of your arms right away. But remembering, we're building from the ground up. So these toes don't even have to leave the earth if you don't feel secure. But I will tell you, the more height you can get between the floor and you, the more pressure that's going down into this one standing leg, the more we can build that bone density. So even if we need to hold on to the chair for dear life, if we can take that foot up off the ground, putting a little bit more pressure into that standing leg, you're really focusing on building those strong bones, repairing bones, adding more pressure. One of the little tidbits I picked up from a bone density workshop that I've attended a couple different times. Yoga for bone health. So remember, hands might lift, hands might be at heart, You might be 100% on that chair. Great work. Take your time. Hands start coming down, feet start coming down. Same freedom of movement that you had last time. Some of us were kind of jogging around. Some of us were rolling ankles. Just kind of see where you are. And then we're going to take something a little bit different today. So we're going to do a wide leg fold. And I don't often do this in chair classes with a chair, so I'm going to give you two options. First option is obviously to use the chair. It would come into the middle of your mat, but slightly off, probably on the floor. That would be one option. And then you're going to straddle wide so that this chair would be near the middle of your stance so that you can fold yourself down onto the chair seat. So this is option one. Another option is that if you're not using a chair or you'd like to create a bigger straddle, maybe you're using some yoga blocks and you have those down in the middle of your stance. If you don't have yoga blocks and you'd like to just let your hands come down to the floor, that's your third option. So you decide what's going to work for you. I'm going to model this with the chair since this is a chair class. But know that if you don't need this or you want to do something different or you're not using a chair, you have that option. My legs are nice and wide. They're probably a good, I don't know, 3 feet or so, 3.5 feet apart from one another. You decide the shape that's going to be good for you, how wide those feet are. If you want a little additional challenge, you might just try to see if you can take that wide stance with not holding on to anything. But of course, if you need to kind of put one hand on the chair to maintain balance, no, that's always an option. So once you've got that big 5-pointed star, we're going to see if we can reach hands up above the head. And then think about your hip creases. This is where your top half meets your bottom. See if you can hinge right at that crease and let your hands start to find either blocks, floor, or chair. Now in my case, I need a little bit more to make sure that I'm feeling this. So I'm going to drop down to my forearms. I might even bring my forehead onto the chair itself. See what position is going to feel best to you and stay in that shape. So since you have, those of you who are using a chair, you might have a little more bravery today. You might be able to walk your feet, just kind of slowly inching them, one a little wider, and see what you can do with your forehead. You might build a little tower with your fists. Place your head on that. It's even okay if you start to feel a little kind of weird kinks or pains. It might feel nice to turn your toes slightly inward, pushing through your heels. And just see how this feels a little different. This isn't a common pose that I do in our everyday chair yoga classes, but there's a lot of really great benefits to wide leg folds. And this is a nice, safe way to do that when you have the support of the chair. Especially if blood pressure is ever an issue for you. Maybe when you bend over for an extended period of time, you feel dizzy. So see if you can relax your neck. If you've been, continually lifting your head up to look at the screen, your neck might be feeling a little tense. So see if you can relax that down, trying not to keep looking up at the device that's in front of you. Knowing that you can always soften a little bit of your knees if you need to, or start to kind of walk the feet back in a little closer if at any point that feels like it needs to happen. All right, perfect. As you feel ready, your hands are going to come back up a little higher on the chair, for those of us who've been using that. If your hands are on the block or on the earth, you might just come just slightly up a little higher. You're gonna put your right hand on the chair seat and see if you can just peel open. So I want you to almost feel like you're opening up a bow and arrow, kind of pulling that rope from the string of the arrow of the bow, and then see if you can open that shoulder. Now it might be more like this, out here to the side, and that's okay too, but if that shoulder joint allows you to open up as if you were stacking this hand in the air on top of that one on the seat, great. And then we'll just take our time to slowly lower this back down. Switching sides, left hand under the face, think about pulling back the string, rope there on that bow, and then opening up. I personally really like doing this one with a chair because it allows me to get so much better alignment for my spine and really get a little more opening through my shoulder. Wide legs works really nice for this. Knowing that that hand can always be positioned on a block as well, like we talked about, if you aren't using a chair. Hand can come back down, slowly start looking for the seat, and then I'm gonna do something different with my heels. So start to turn the heels of your feet in to look towards one another. Hands can stay right here, and we take kind of a modified squat. So we're just putting a little bit of weight towards our heels, maybe bringing our chest just up a little bit, watching those knees, making sure they're turned out, going the same direction as your toes. Some of you probably feel confident enough to come up off the seat and maybe bring hands to your heart. Others of you are gonna feel safer right here. If you've got a block and you've been doing this whole series without the chair, you've had your hands on blocks, you might choose to walk your feet in even closer and squat down into a full yoke squat. So there's lots of different places we can go. And just because I show you something doesn't mean you have to be trying it either. So if that's not where you want to be today, don't feel pressured. All right, friends, take your time. Slowly start bringing these feet back underneath of you. If you're in a squat, your hands are going to drop down to the ground. You're going to walk the feet in a little closer, and then you'll lift your hips. Those of us with the chair, do that same thing. Walk the feet in a little closer, lift the hips. Maybe you're in a nice flat spine. If I show you this from the side, my feet walked in closer. I've got a nice long spine, crown of the head's pointing straight forward. As my next inhale comes around, I might soften through my knees, reach the hands away from the chair, go nice and high with those hands above my head. And then just exhale this down to your heart. Take a quiet moment to close the eyes. Feel the earth strong beneath your feet. Inhale, breath. Exhale to release. Now we've done quite a bit standing today. It's time to head back to our chair. So, those of you who are going to finish this practice seated, because that's where you feel the most comfortable, that's a great place to go. I thought about doing a few things on the wall, so I'm going to give you that as a final option as well. So I'm going to show you 3 different places you can start to find your rest. Place 1 is going to be the most basic. This is what we do in most chair classes. You just find yourself seated in a chair, palms are lifted up. You just get into a place where you can feel comfortable. You might visit a few things with your neck, shoulders, and you just settle in. Option 2 looks like chair on the mat. Rear comes to the ground, close to the legs of the chair. Feet lift, relax themselves on the chair seat. And we allow our back to move down into the earth. Option 3, if you have a wall handy, it's very similar to what I'm showing you in the chair. However, you just get to swing your legs and put yourself into something that looks like this, legs up the wall. My rear is as close as I can get it to the wall, and my feet are extended up towards the ceiling. So you take your choice as to seated or slightly lifted feet or legs up the wall. But start to settle in so that you can feel present in this moment. Remembering that one of the quickest ways to get us to be present and here with the power of that present feeling, that present moment, is to tap into our breath. So whatever final pose you have chosen, let things become soft. Let the breath escape the body, maybe even in big, full sighs. The past is over and done and has no power over me. I can begin to be free in this moment. Today's thoughts create my future. I am in charge. I now take my own power back. I am safe and I am free. Breathing in, I am safe. Breathing out, I am free. I am safe. I am free. Relaxing the muscles of the face, the neck, the shoulders. I am safe. I am free. Slowly starting to become aware of your breath. Gradually allowing gentle movements to move back into the body. Maybe just opening and closing the hands or pointing and flexing the toes, rolling around the ankles. Those of us who are back on our backs, take your time, maybe knees coming in towards chest. Maybe hands gently coming away from the body, maybe reaching up overhead. It might even feel nice to slowly start rolling yourself to your right hand side. Those of us in the chair will just take time to get back to that tall spine we've been working with today. Maybe bringing the hands into the heart as everyone starts to meet us back in a seat. I love the privacy of being able to practice at home. The idea that you can stay in that savasana as long as you need. The idea that your breath and your movements are yours. And you can have that little bit of quiet on your own terms. I hope that you've been enjoying these online classes with us, Zooming with us. I know that some of you have taken a lot of advantage of that, and we love seeing your faces each day online with us. May you feel part of this community, because the community is not just the physical walls of SIFT, but all the energy that is associated with the instructors and the people who make up SIFT. May you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you again. Namaste.